Hey, how's it going, everyone? This is Vesper. So, there's this recent interview that Capcom did regarding Street Fighter V, basically giving clarity on the design choices of the game since its incarnation. And I think this is important to talk about now because we're entering, close to the end of the game's life cycle. But more importantly than that, we're always used to these interviews being answered by Ono. Ono is always the face and always answering all these interviews. But since Ono's on his way out, we finally get to hear, some responses from the director Nakayama, which we just finally seen out of nowhere, and of course, probably the new producer, I think, Shuhei Matsumoto as well. So this interview is done by a website called Spin. I'll provide a link to that in the video description. If you guys want to see all the questions for yourself, I'm not going to go over every question in this video. I want to try to keep this short, but I'll go over two questions, a lot regarding the roster of characters, and I'd like to give my own feedback or basically my own thoughts as well, since I've been covering the game since the start. We kind of talk about what worked and what didn't work and see how they respond to these questions. So one thing that they mentioned before the interview even starts is they say next season of new characters and content set to roll out for Street Fighter V over the next several months will be its last. And that's for the millionth time. That's another confirmation, because we've heard this so many times, that this is definitely the end of Street Fighter V. This is the last amount of content. And I think it's important to talk about that and mention that again because it hints us that Street Fighter 6 is imminent, like it's coming soon, even though we've heard rumors of its delay. But that's what this entire Season 5 is to, what it's for to begin with, is to buy them time while Street Fighter 6 is delayed. So we'll start with the first question in the interview, and I think this is a really important question. Also, keep in mind, guys, I'm not going to read the entire question, just the important parts. And they say, what goes into making sure the new characters and content keep it feeling fresh year after year? And the director, Nakayama, responds, the characters' abilities, visual design, and their history in terms of appearance within previous titles are all taken into consideration. Regarding the battle elements, we try not to overlap with the attributes of existing characters. I love the characters from all different series, which makes it difficult for me to choose, but I try to select characters that have a unique quality and have the potential to expand the story and universe of the game. So we can already see this kind of reflected in the recent Season 5 roster. We've only seen 4 out of the 5 characters, but we can definitely see this makes sense with what they're saying. Dan, Rose, Oro, and Akira, all really unique characters, all from different titles, right? All with their all different fighting styles. I mean, they spiced up Dan a little bit with these taunt cancels, but for the most part, every other character, Rose and Oro especially, Akira's from an entirely different fighting game. That all fits the bill. Another thing, too, is that these are all returning characters, right? They're all characters that we already know, and they're also all fan favorites from wherever they're from, right? So these are also really important, like DLC-wise, for them to get people either back into the game or to pick up the game, like be interested to buy the game in the first place, because I think one of the big problems with Street Fighter V from the get-go has been the roster and character choices. There's too many fan favorites for too spaced apart to keep the seasons fresh, and I think that hurt them, especially at the beginning, which is the most important of a game's life cycle, of course. It's right at the beginning for Street Fighter V. So let's go over that a little bit, actually, and just look over the history of it. Let's start with the initial launch roster of Street Fighter V. I think the two weakest seasons for Street Fighter V in terms of the character choices they made was the launch, the original 16, and I would say probably Season 2, where they had just like non-stop new characters. But let's go over the original roster first. So when we look at it, we already see three characters that are obscure right off the bat. Dalsum, Fang, and I would say Vega, I'd say are not too popular of characters. But, I think Dalsum, he's such an easy character to put in the roster because he's so unique, right? Vega, too, they tried something with the stance switching. And then there's Zangief. We always need that grappler character. Instead of having Guile, they put Nash instead, right? And, Nash was definitely a popular character that they could easily have to delay Guile. And Guile came the next season anyways. Caddying was probably one of their strongest choices. Super popular in Japan, overseas, and Alex was super popular in the US, I remember, but they saved him for the next season. But I think Caddying was like an excellent choice for the starting roster. Miko is kind of more of Ono's thing, where Miko is a favorite of Ono, and we had Ryu Ken for the Shotos, and missing Akuma, which was another super, super popular character. But I feel like there's a lot of players. Like, first off, it's not just like the fact that the roster was small for the first 16. It wasn't just the fact that it was 16 characters. I think they purposely left out a lot of the super favorite characters for the DLC, and I think when you have only 16 characters for that, especially when there's so many new ones, right? For new characters, we had Rashid, Nikali, and Fane and Laura. That's 4 out of the 16 right there. So it doesn't leave too much room. And I remember there's so many players that are like, I'm not gonna pick up Street Fighter V until XYZ character is in this game. We've had a lot of that, and I think that definitely hurt Street Fighter V at the very beginning because they tried. I think they tried too hard to make sure every character was different rather than focusing on a lot of fan favorites at the starting as well. Because I'm more of a function guy myself, but I feel like a lot of people that, especially on the casual side, they don't care about the roster being this of diverse cast of different mechanics. They care just more about their favorite character returning so they can play them. That's what they remember, right? Because they play on nostalgia. Looking at season one character roster, I think was very strong. We have Alex, Guile, Ibuki, Balrog, Jerry, Urine, all returning characters. I think this was like one of the strongest character seasons. Like everyone was super hyped. They saw Guile. It also gave an opportunity for them to do the classic Guile stage. Alex was super popular. Too bad the character turned out to be ass. And then Urien, of course, was super popular. So these were all. This is one of the strongest, I'd say, roster seasons. Now we have season 2. I think this was the worst. I think it was definitely worst. I mean, Akuma, obviously one of the most popular characters in the game, and he's still a super popular pick to this day. But the rest of the season, right after Akuma, it's all brand new characters. I mean, technically everyone knew Colleen, but she was still like a playable brand new character. And I think a lot of this was hit or miss. And like, don't get me wrong, I think the design for Zeku was awesome. I think Minot's design is pretty cool as well. But I mean, when you have like, I remember the trailer shown at EVO. When we had a trailer for like Geese coming to Tekken, and then we had that Abigail trailer like right after. It was like the biggest buzzkill ever in the stadium, and that says a lot because Abigail's my boy. He's from Canada too, so I don't know, man. I think season 2 really hurt them, taking a chance of making an entire season of all brand new characters. It's really hard to convince a casual player to come back to Street Fighter V or buy Street Fighter V for a character that's brand new. It's just not really how it works. It's more about players that are already into the game that are interested in trying a new character, but not for bringing in somebody who hasn't picked up the game in the first place. But it was smart of Capcom to put Akuma first in the season rather than last, because ooh boy, that would have hurt Street Fighter. Season 3 was kind of a comeback. This was when we had the arcade edition. Sakura was an excellent first character. Blanca's another good returning one. And then we had Falk, right? I think Falk definitely was a problem there. I think if they had like Honda instead of Falk, it was Blanca and Honda. I think that would have been really strong. Not having like 2 new characters, I think just one would have been fine. I do think Capcom put too many new characters in Street Fighter V with that, and too many returning Final Fight characters. But Cody was obviously a really big pick. G's a really cool character, especially with the hints of storyline with Q with him as well. They did a good job integrating the new characters into the storyline because they're somehow related to other characters in some way. They're not completely brand new out of nowhere, so that's nice. But like I said, there's Sagat. Sagat's coming very, very late in the game's life cycle, right at the tail end. And I think that Capcom should have not made too many brand new characters. And then we have season 4, our most recent season with Champion Edition. This was kind of split, right? Because this was when like Street Fighter V was, on content-wise, was really hurting because we had Kage first, right? Who wasn't even really Evil Ryu. And everyone was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And then we had the biggest drought ever. All the way to the end of the year, like 6 or 9 months later. And then we had Poison, Honda, and Lucia. These are great character choices. I mean, Lucia, I don't think was, because like Lucia was another returning Final Fight character. We've had too many of those. She's another brand new one. And Lucia is not really popular pick to this day because she's just kind of too unknown, unfortunately. Like I said, these are more characters you want to see at the beginning of the game's life rather than the tail end when people are just dying for like their super fan favorites to come. But once again, you run into that problem if the starting roster is too small, like I just talked about. when you have too many brand new characters and not too many of your favorites, that could be a problem as well. And then catching up all the way up to now, we have Gil and Seth, and that was supposed to be the end of the game because it was, Champion Edition. They wanted to have all the boss characters in the game, and yeah, I think if the game ended here like it was supposed to, I think overall the roster for Street Fighter V is pretty weak if we go by just character favorites and popularity. I think it's pretty weak, but there is a lot of characters in Street Fighter V. I just feel like there's just way too many new characters, and I'm just going from a point of view of them trying to sell copies of the game. I'm sure a lot of you guys love some of the brand new characters that they had. I'm not trying to say that it's all bad, but I think just in terms of them choosing what characters to get people playing the game, I think didn't work so well. But you guys can, if you guys disagree with me, let me know in the comments. What you think about the roster of Street Fighter V if it would have ended at Seth. But I think this recent Season 5 roster, I think it was just the best pick they could have done. Like Dan, Rose, Oro, Akira, I think that's an amazing. It'll probably be the best season of characters, honestly, now that I think about it. Even though it was not something that they planned originally, depending on what their fifth and final character is. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with what I said and what your guys' opinion on what a better roster would have been or what they should do going forward with Street Fighter 6, besides the obvious have 50,000 characters at launch. And we'll continue reading more questions with this interview in the future, guys. And I'll give you guys some more of my thoughts on the game. So, till next time, guys, take care, everyone.